Take 1 second.
There you go. All right. Ready? Let's do it. Father, you're up.
I thought we were.
You got to lead us in prayer.
Yeah, we're praying.
Let's go.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you as we draw closer to the end of the Christmas season, as we celebrate this weekend the Epiphany of the Lord, that you may continue to manifest yourself, your word, your love in our hearts. As we pray, come Holy Spirit, come by the most powerful intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, your well-beloved spouse. Come Holy Spirit, come by the most powerful intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, your well-beloved spouse. Come Holy Spirit, come by the most powerful intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, your well-beloved spouse. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Is it rude to lick your fingers when
I don't know.
you're praying?
I was just thinking today won't be texted about the chair noise. It's going to be the licking fingers and those things. But oh man, I guess anybody got a boom by
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
Does anybody got a boom by
That was
this
my
morning?
kumbaya.
That's your boom by Cody, you always good for a boom by
Yeah, sure.
You got one?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
We got a really good one.
Oh, here we go.
we'll judge that. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah, if you judge this one bad, then good luck on your soul.
That's how we're going to start out today.
Good luck
on your soul.
So I'm dealing with.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good luck on your soul out there. Okay, go ahead.
I'm dealing with some things that told others here.
Yeah, that's true. That is
A blessing.
No, I am dealing with some things without getting too personal. I had somebody text me yesterday and just ask how I'm doing, and told them some of the things that I'm going through, and then I said, on the bright side of this, if I do this right, I can help a lot of people out of purgatory. And they responded with, yes, but your family and students need you. I'm imploring the Holy Spirit to relieve you. He can give it to me instead. My family is raised. So this is a person who is of my parents' age, who is texting me and is basically just saying there, you know what, whatever you're dealing with, and they know very specifically what I'm dealing with, but they are asking that God let them carry my cross instead. And it's just a beautiful thing when somebody uplifts you, holds you up, and reminds you that you're not there doing it alone, that you are being held up by them at every moment in their prayers, and they're doing everything. And then I was also reminded at that moment that so when you go into scripture, I had to look it up actually, so I didn't mess it up, but it's 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And it's where St. Paul is basically saying he boasts, but he only boasts in the cross of Christ. And he says that Satan has given him a thorn in his side, so that he may not become too elated. And he says, because in my weakness, then I am strong. And basically, when you look towards the cross of Christ, whatever you're dealing with, you hold that up and you remember that it is in Christ's strength that you're living. So thought that was really, really awesome that person brought me there. That's it.
You're putting a little salt in my wound today. I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself because we got beat last night. And then you're sitting there like, sometimes those things keep us in a good place. And, a lot of times you learn from that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it just felt like a giant pile of salt right there in my wound this morning. So I appreciate that.
Sure. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so let's forget all about all the good stuff that was going on in your Boombayah there. Let's just talk about how I'm feeling sorry for myself today.
I thought you were going to jump on it and go, oh, you must be really strong because you're definitely very weak.
Look,
I don't know how you didn't jump on that.
Like I told you, I'm just wallowing in self-pity today. So, oh, man. That's a good Boombayah. I think it's one of the cool aspects of our faith. We talk about it even with our guys in practice, and man, it is way too early for a sports reference, but that's okay.
It's never too early for you.
One of the things is us as Catholics that we believe is that you can offer that stuff up for people. And so even like suicides at the end of practice or a whole practice or something. Like we got an individual works in the kitchen at TMP who just had surgery. We offered to practice up for him. So all the struggles, all the difficulties, all those things, we can do those, which I think is a cool aspect that a lot of other faiths miss out on.
Yeah.
Because of their teaching. So
We're live.
we're going live. You finally got done and shared it.
Yeah, it took a while. I couldn't find it.
I saw your frustration on your face.
I haven't even paid attention to anything that we've said so far.
I see the frustration on your face.
Okay. This sounds going to be all day long today. All right, so let's get to the topic a little bit. I actually think these guys think it won't take the entire time. I think we'll be surprised how easy it will be to talk about this. But I wanted to talk a little bit today about social media. And actually, we've got 3 different levels of social media in here. Cody just got the smartphone about, 6 months ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Not even 6 months, probably.
I don't know.
Okay, before that, he was flip phone guy. So when we talk about like texting, it was the old da 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 da.
Like Morse code.
Like, yeah. If you remember back how difficult that was, that's why he didn't ever send any texts. But so and I can imagine his social media is limited to the fact that him and his wife have a shared Facebook account. But I'm guessing you're not doing very much posting on that.
Not much.
Okay, so he's on the really low level, and my guess also is he's probably not even paying attention to it a whole lot. Probably Jarrett has several platforms, but he never checks Twitter ever because he likes hanging out with all the, well, I'm not going to say it, on Facebook side.
Oh, wow.
But he's a Facebook guy, and I'd say not very active, but somewhat active. I would say you probably look through it a lot, but you don't share a lot of stuff.
I share a fair amount. I probably posted 3 things yesterday.
What's your average a week?
Posts per week?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's a good question. Maybe 1 a day.
Okay, so we put him on the middle level, and then I'm probably the most active on social media, at least on the Twitter platform. I share a lot of stuff and put a lot of stuff up, and a lot of that is just team stuff a lot of times, but I'm pretty active on it. So we're kind of all in different realms of it. I think we could start with what are some of the good things that social media does for us.
The very fact that people who are listening to us right now
got that
most likely
information
got it through
from social media. Yeah.
So, I mean, that is I think a way that, and it is going to be a tough topic because there are very many good things. And anytime you talk about a negative on anything, it sounds like you're really, bad mouthing it or downplaying it or whatever. But I think the truth of the matter of the benefits is a beautiful thing. And such as, like being able to find and have access to things that you just would not have had access to. I'm thinking about the fact that right now, as we speak, the SEEK 2019 Fellowship of Catholic University Students conference is going on in Indianapolis. And so there's been a ton of hype around social media for that. And with that, and I mean, they've live streamed everything through Facebook and YouTube. And so the idea that thousands of people are there, we're talking about like 17 to 20,000 people there. But then in addition to that, the thousands of people that have access to watching the talks live from their homes is pretty much due to social media as well. So I mean, that would be one of the benefits is just the access that we have to information and to talks and to podcasts and to things that we wouldn't have had access to before.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. So I'll come out and say it right now that I like social media from that standpoint. I would say it's actually helped some of my faith stuff. Father Mike Schmitz put stuff up. A long time ago, there was a whole lot of like just good 2-3 minute clips that Catholic Answers was putting up with just how to answer this kind of stuff. So, I enjoy that side of it. Plus with the Seek stuff, I mean, it's good to be able to get access to that. So I think I enjoy it. I don't know if I think it's good, but I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, you got an opinion on this?
Yeah, there are definitely some podcasts. feel like I think I'm the doom bringer.
Okay.
There are some podcasts that my wife listens to that I've started liking to listen to also that definitely wouldn't be there without social media. There even like text messaging, starting with the Boombayah thing this morning. Yeah, I think that for a lot of things, a phone call is better, but there are definitely situations where the phone call probably wouldn't happen or can't happen at that time. And sometimes the text message will get through where a phone call can't. And maybe you're going to see something or maybe respond to something before that. And so there are a lot of benefits out there I'm not just anti-social media. It's just there's a lot of it that I do try to stay away from also.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I was gonna say, and with it, as with anything, and we'll get into this part of it as well. But as with anything, and that tends to be the Catholic way. Is it's typically not going to be either or. It's going to be a both and. However, yeah, that's going to be I think in the realm of social media today, we probably are leaning. Well, it's uncharted territory. It's really actually very, very new. And so I think there's probably little to no regulation on it in our own lives as adults, and just an acknowledgement of what it is or isn't doing to our relationships and that kind of thing. And it's just I think it's an interesting realm that is kind of new to all of us. And so it's going to be very interesting to see not only, the positives that are taking place, but also the negatives. I think that it's actually the damaging effects. I don't know that we have quite yet come to see kind of what that is and what that looks like.
I think we're beginning to. I think that we're starting to see evidence that it has not been good for our society, has not been good for relationships. And I think that is only going to grow as we go. The question is, and we can talk about some of those negatives in a little bit, but the question is, like you said, with all things, you can use it for good. Does that outweigh and allow you to stay on the platforms and enjoy social media? Is there a healthy balance that you can use with that? I think the thing that concerns me the most about it is, we used to tell high school kids if something happened bad in high school, you drop your tray and you feel like everybody's laughing at you, or something happens and you'd say, your high school is not the whole world. Not everybody knows it's not the whole world. But now young people do feel like everybody in the world knows when something embarrassing happens. And, anytime anything happens, there's obviously a social media post going up and making fun of them. I don't know. I think that's concerning to me.
Yeah, that's a realm that I guess I'm not tuned into, is just how much that is having a damaging effect upon teenagers in terms of just immediate access to mistakes and to just bullying and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm aware that that's a thing. I just don't necessarily see how it works.
Yeah, even as a teacher, I mean, and Cody can attest to this. If you do something dumb in class or you look funny or something, you can almost guarantee a Snapchat has gone out to the entire school, even though they're not supposed to have their phones, but they're incredibly sneaky with them. So if Cody was to put his feet back on his desk for a second and kind of relax while the class is working on something, I can promise you that picture went to everybody in the school.
Wow.
And same way though, like, sometimes our guys will fall asleep on a bus, in a funny position, and you can guarantee that got Snapchatted out to everybody. And that's a lot of pressure to live with. You're snoring on a bus and that gets sent to everybody,
Yeah, I listened to somebody talk about it, exactly what you were saying. And they said, it used to be that if you did something stupid, basically you had 24 hours to live it down. They're like, okay, I did something stupid, but by tomorrow, somebody else is going to do something stupid and the school is going to turn on them. They'll be the new target, whatever. Definitely there were always those kids who were always the target, but for the most part, that bullying thing, it did end within 24, 48 hours. But like you're saying, I mean, it's constant now. And now when you do something stupid, whatever it is, you're right. The whole world knows about it. And so it's not even just your school now. Now you got people who don't even know you that are sending you messages about how big of a dork you are.
You know,
Mhm.
so Cody gets a lot of messages from people who know him. That say that too. But you know, one of the things too, like think about, we can all think of famous like YouTube clips. You know, we make fun of that one where the guy's going live or whatever. We're going live. We're doing it live. And like Bobby Knight throwing a chair, or you know, people losing it in press conferences. Trying to remember who the Oklahoma State coach. I'm a man. I'm 40. I can take this. Those are the kind of things that our young people deal with every day, because their little mini press conference or bad moment is always caught by somebody.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of pressure and stress for young people to live with. Imagine if you had to go through life, and I feel this way sometimes, making sure you don't have a bad moment because you assume if you do, it's going to get caught somewhere and get put up everywhere. That's what I think our young people deal with stress-wise all the time, is making sure they don't, you know, they go one of two directions. They're real careful, or they just say, forget it, and they just act out because of that, which I think we also see that behavior a lot.
Yeah, I would think so.
But I mean, it's no different as adults too. I mean, think about, like, you know, you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad place, it's late at night, and you put something up on social media that you wish you didn't. You know, we're seeing a lot of instances where 4 or 5 years later, people are combing through people's social media, finding something they put up one time a long time ago, and ends up ruining their career or ends up ruining their life in a way. I mean, that's a lot of pressure and stress to live under.
Yeah, you know, it's something I think that I find is difficult to do. Yeah, but I really try to stick to this. Is somebody told me once that you never win an argument on social media,
Which is true.
and so I try.
I would have all.
I try very much to not get into those bickering moments on Facebook, you know, because you go there. Sometimes it's actually kind of fun to go to some of those posts and just see how big of idiots people make themselves look like in all of the comments. But yeah, I think you just got to be real careful about that. It's okay to get into a discussion, maybe if both of you are actually wanting to have a discussion. But as for an argument where both of you are just amped up and spitting stuff at each other, I mean, it's not going to do any good.
I'm just thinking about the whole bullying thing, and how in generations past, bullying and bullies might have been motivated by whatever was going on within them, as far as their angst or the reaction they get out of the person that they're bullying. Whereas much of bullying today, you could say in some ways, is what kind of positive response am I going to get from my peer group, from the outside world, from, you know, so who's going to like this, who's going to see this, who's going to laugh at this. And so you're almost looking for opportunities and not realizing the material of the person that you're taking, that it actually could or possibly is doing damage to them. It's more about how am I going to utilize this to make people laugh and to draw likes and to draw attention to myself in some ways. I was thinking about that. That made me think about such an explosion of television that's out there today. And in and of itself, it's not bad. But I think of, like, there's these true TV shows with those friends that go around. What is that called?
Practical Jokers or
Is
something.
that what it is?
Yeah,
Practical
something.
Jokers.
Impractical Jokers.
Okay, yeah. So in and of itself, funny show, seems harmless. They're just having fun, you know. But I sometimes cringe, and not all of them. But every once in a while, I cringe because of it's sort of utilizing the unexpected person and almost taking advantage of them, and making them, in some ways, at times, look like a fool, so as to draw, you know, humor and jokes and kind of draw attention to the show and these guys. And I struggle with some shows like that sort of take advantage of people in that way, even if it's not, you know, obviously rude. But I just think that's kind of in the same vein in some ways of the bullying that's probably going on today. Is it doesn't seem explicitly bad yet. How much would any of us want to be in that position that's being exploited in that way?
I think, you know, first let's talk about what you talked about with the putting up stuff to get likes. I was watching a documentary, and they're talking like there's serious addictions to getting the thumbs up on your stuff and continually checking to see how many people have thumbs up on it. And if not very many, then feeling really bad about yourself and going to try to find the next thing that will get a lot of likes. And then they talk about, it's really no different than, the kid in class who needs a little bit of attention that does cartwheels in the middle. So everybody says, oh, you're great or something. That's a lot of people who don't feel very good about themselves trying in some desperate way to feel good about themselves. And that's a lot of what social media is. Mm-hmm. I think it's concerning that we will go to random strangers to get their approval in order for ourselves to feel valuable or good. I think it's a direct correlation to us losing our faith in a way, because no longer are we rooted in our self-esteem by the fact that we are creations of God, loved by God. We are now rooting our self-esteem and do other people approve of me? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where social media has taken us. Now, you can point one direction, the other was whether social media put us in that situation or whether our lack of faith put us in that situation. And social media is the avenue to play that out, but it's very concerning. But I know that you guys would feel, you talk about the bullying and sometimes it is innocent people and sometimes it's purposeful, because I think the other thing social media is used for is to try to make everybody feel like the whole world disagrees with them and you should jump on board. So when you look at politics and things, they are definitely trying to make it look like you're the minority, no matter what your position is, and the whole world disagrees with you. You should really just jump right on. And I think that's concerning too.
Yeah, those are some good points. I think I'm going to have to think about that for a little bit.
Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break.
We haven't had Father's tidbits of awesomeness.
My guess
that was my tidbits of awesomeness.
My guess is you felt some pressure when posting, whether it's because you're a Catholic priest or whether, like even with the church renovations, you might have had a little hesitancy of putting up some pictures like, oh man.
It's true. Yeah. I think I'm probably as guilty as the next person of being tied into, wanting people's approval in terms of likes and, how popular is a post and that kind of stuff. And
did they like my homily?
Yeah. Did they like my Cousin Eddie Christmas costume?
Hey, we saw how much you perked up when your article got viral or whatever.
Oh, the diocesan article.
Yeah, you thumping your chest, playing the instruments. We knew it was. But it's easy to understand.
I do that every day. It doesn't matter.
But it's easy to understand why that could become addicting to everything you put up there. They're overwhelming.
Yeah. You get acknowledgement from people that you hold, at times in high esteem, or just people that you wouldn't expect. So we kind of don't look oftentimes with great significance to the people who we should. And on the other hand, we give the power of affirmation to so many other people that really don't have a large role to play in our lives. So I was thinking about that in terms of, even sometimes even looking through, well, who has liked a post or something like that. And, giving certain amounts of credence to, or feelings of affirmation to seeing somebody that for whatever reason we hold them either in high esteem, or that we haven't seen them in a while, or that we wouldn't think that they would be paying attention to us or whatever, that it has a higher level of impact. What exactly that is and, the damage that it possibly does, I don't know that I fully have a grasp of, but it's just an interesting psychological thing that's going on. At least I am willing to admit it for myself at times.
No, I agree with you. I can remember, even calling people and saying, "Hey, guess who just followed me on Twitter?" So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I think the immediate thing we can see is, again, somehow it is moving our the way that we value ourselves into external things instead of internal. And I think we can see that.
It's one that's consuming.
It really is
emotionally consuming. It is time consuming. How busy we are, and we use the moments. If you just calculate the moments of times that we would look to social media for whatever, And it may not seem, it's like, oh, I'm taking a split second here and a second here to look at this. But if you add those up, the amount of time that we actually give to that is kind of scary.
Yeah, even like my own personal thing is, I try to get up about an hour before I have to actually get ready and leave or something. And I spent that hour as prayer and just quiet time, thinking time, those things. But I got in a really bad habit of, if I grab my phone and I think, well, I'll just check a few emails, because I love to have my email box empty and I get a few overnight.
It drives him nuts.
And then, I'll click just for a second, like, hey, I want to see what the games were last night, or and then all of a sudden that hour is gone and I got to get ready and I'm not ready for the day and I haven't spent time in prayer. And it is so easy to where now I have to, Mandy and I have moved the phone away from, we used to plug it in and charge it right next to the bed. And now we've moved it, the other side of the room. And then I have to leave it in the room and I go to the living room, because otherwise it's just easy for me to waste that hour. And it is just so addicting in that way, I guess. I don't know.
That's one thing I even talked about with like my spiritual director, is the damage that can have on my own, not spiritual life as much as just my own psychological or emotional life, is jumping onto Facebook or some form of social media immediately in the morning, and in a sense granting that element power over us, or to the other degree is just having a positive encounter, or perhaps more commonly something negative that we see that sort of turns us negative for the day, or we encounter something. And the funny thing is that this is happening subconsciously. This is happening, like, we don't even oftentimes, we're not even aware of the ways that certain, whether it's an article that somebody posts, whether it's a picture, whatever it might be, how that emotionally can have an impact on even just how we're starting off the day. So I really do think that can be a damaging thing, is if we give that the very first moment of our day, which I think more and more is common, because I would say most, a lot of people use their phones for alarms, and therefore you got to pick up your phone to turn off your alarm, and then it's in your hand, and what notifications are up there immediately.
Yeah, as you say, it's emotionally draining, emotionally consuming. I would think I would call it something like hyper emotionalization, or make up a new word here. But the way that it has been done, we have been so pumped up on making everything just this giant moment. Everything has to be a roller coaster ride in our lives, that I even notice how if you get a text message and it just says thank you, or an email and it just says thank you is just not enough anymore. You notice how now it has to come with like an exclamation mark or 3 exclamation marks or a little emoji face or something like that. Otherwise you're kind of like, so is this kind of like a thanks, or is this a hey thanks? And so we have got ourselves even to that point of, if it doesn't come with all the extra stuff, where we almost feel like, we should sit back and go, well, they said thanks. That used to be enough, but now it's not enough for us. And I kind of find that even in my own life. So I find that a weird thing going on too.
Yeah, it's like I got to take the time to look for a Bitmoji that fits this particular scenario, or a GIF or GIF or whatever you call those.
I just like it because it's a great way to talk trash. It's in the emoji.
I do love them.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, how many seconds of the day did I just spend scrolling through these to find just the right one in a situation, that really doesn't need it and isn't necessary, and I don't know what impact it has.
One of the things you mentioned too is that making everything a moment. I think that the other thing you see is how everybody's putting up the pictures of the birthday party, and it has to look perfect, and everybody's got to be whatever. And the whole culture of it didn't happen if there's not a picture of it and it's not on Facebook or Twitter, and Instagram or whatever. But the other part of it too, how everything is so fake on there too. Like everybody looks so happy. Everybody looks like everything's whatever. Bodies are photoshopped. People are doing stuff in front of green screens that look like they're out doing stuff. And the problem is people who don't realize that what this other person's really awesome life is fake feels bad about their life because they don't have that same opportunity. And there might actually be problems going on in the family. There might have been a fight in the birthday party or something, but the picture makes it look like everything's great and everybody's happy. And I think that continues to be down on us. Like, why am I having struggles in my family? Why am I having struggles? Why am I not going on vacation to Jamaica every day? What is wrong with me? And again, I think that, everything is fake, but we buy into it a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of wonder on the other side of it too, though, then, there are some people that will dump everything out there. And I really worry about that too.
Check out this donut that I just ate.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just
Honestly, where did
everything? Yeah, like where did we become a culture that we care about what you are doing every single second of every day? And why do we need to?
think about the arrogance of everybody wants to know what every meal I eat.
Yeah.
I know, honestly, there's a lot of arrogance of like, oh man, I'm eating a cookie. Everybody in the country and the world wants to know that I'm eating a cookie right now. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it.
But it makes sense that we're feeding on it because what the reality TV, basically, it's the modern reality TV. These are the people watching other people's lives. Gives us some, and I don't even know that I know the answer to why we're drawn to that, but it's that voyeurism of being drawn into both the positive emotional things, the negative emotional things that are going on in other people's lives. It's something that sort of feeds us, and it's probably in many ways a weakness of our own psychologically and emotionally. And that's
they were always.
I was just laughing because I think to some degree, this might come across this whole conversation that we're in is sort of like just a social media bashing session or whatever, but but at the same time,
it's concerning.
It's just I think it's just trying to have an awareness of things, because I don't know that we're really having these conversations within families, within communities, within churches, as far as just like, are there really? I mean, what are the damaging effects? What can I pause right now and look at my own life and my own daily time schedule and whatnot, and what types of things could be seen as having a negative impact on my life? Yes, I should also look at, how are these things, how has this been great for my family? How has this been great for my own, ability to do what I do and learn what I learn? But at the same time, what are the possible damaging effects? And I just don't know that we're having this conversation, and maybe more so we are. But.
I think one of the things that Cody mentioned, and I think you mentioned as well, though, is like time. I think we should look at that. Mm-hmm. If you read a lot of the successful people, they will talk about not wasting time, and they eliminate those things, such as like Netflix would be something that if you actually want to be successful, you don't really spend a lot. I know this is your baby, so but you don't actually. And there's a term, it's Netflix poor, that is happening now. Instead of going out and accomplishing and doing things, they've spent the entire day, wasted it watching some series.
I expanded my mind by watching a documentary.
There you go. Okay, over and over and over. But social media poor is going to be something too, where instead of going and reading a book and actually expanding or spending time in prayer or exercising or doing something, we let all those little moments go. And so I think in some ways it's a giant just wagon stick, and we follow wherever it goes and fetch it and bring it back. And it's concerning to the fact that I'm afraid like our productivity as a country is going to go down, that young people aren't going to be doing as much or achieving as much because of how much distraction they have. I don't know. It's kind of like I tell people, especially in the coaching business, 15 years ago, when you were on a bus with junior high or high school kids, it was miserable because there was so much noise. Now, when you're on a bus, there's no noise. Nobody's talking to anybody. They're all on their phones and they're all social media or whatever, playing games, but there's no conversations anymore. Mm-hmm. I think that's concerning.
Yeah, I take it back to yesterday. I was talking with another teacher because I'm concerned about Yeah, our shares.
I know, I just shifted in my
So,
chair.
I actually use
That was
social
wrong.
media to
That was
text
wrong.
my
That's
wife.
okay. Cody was
And
talking.
I asked her, and she
Whatever
said,
we want.
yes, your chairs are making a loud noise again.
That's not social media. That's a text.
Well, that's it's still. Yes, you're right. Thanks for setting.
I believe that's social connection, whether it's social media or not.
So anyway, as I was saying yesterday, I was talking with a teacher.
I just gotta argue with Bill no
Another
matter what.
teacher because I have concerns about a student, and so I was asking how this student was doing in their class, and just trying to figure out, what to pray for the student and things like that, and know the student to have a good background as for family life and things like that. And the other teacher told me that they had a good conversation with this person, and this person was honest with them and goes, you know what? I just want every day to be an NCYC. Why can't it be like that? And so they were admitting that their behaviors in class and things like that, their so-called boredom in theology class, whatever, is because they want every day to be a pumped up experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so this teacher was reminding them, they were like, that's not how life is. But that's going back to what we've been talking about is I think that's this, as I was calling it, this hyper emotionalization. I think that's what we're living in is every moment has to be that. And if every moment's not that, then it's lacking and there's something wrong with the moment. When in fact, I think there's just something wrong with us.
See, this actually crosses over into the other topic we were talking about a little bit, but I think it actually affects our church a little bit because obviously the social media coming from the Catholic aspects oftentimes are videos or things that aren't whatever. But I do believe a lot of churches try to use that as that constant. And so like some of the Protestant churches that every service has to be the NCYC kind of moment with the live band on stage, the lights, the projector, the inspiring message, those sort of things where they try to make that every Sunday is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all their social media posts are, we're having so much fun. Everything is so awesome. Here there's Dr. Pepper that flows from the water fountains, and I think that at times, sometimes we buy in that a little bit and that's what we want. I don't know.
Oh yeah, totally. I think we're almost conditioned to come to something and hoping that it will engage us. It'll draw us in. It'll snatch our attention or whatever we're desiring at that moment. Whereas that's not worship in a sense.
Yeah.
Worship, and that sounds crazy to people to make some kind of critical claim like that particular service or whatever is not worship. But traditionally, worship is our offering of something of ourselves, of something of our possession on behalf of ourselves to God or before God. I mean, that's the definition of worship, actually. It's throughout human history, even beyond Christianity, is this sort of offering of ourselves in something to God, whether that's our time, whether that's our gifts, whether that's our money, whatever it is. And so this idea where we come into the church, plop down into the seat, whatever it is, an auditorium seat or a recliner or a hard pew, either way, and sort of sit there waiting to be engaged, is just such a foreign notion to this idea of coming to worship, which means coming to offer something of ourselves on behalf of God, not earning something from God or paying something for God or for ourselves, but rather acknowledging who God is and what we sort of owe by our very existence, by our very essence, everything that we have and are. And it's just such an opposite. This is a shift of just perception of what it's supposed to be about.
Just for fun, I follow some of like the mega church pastors, some of like the just national big ones or whatever. And I find it funny how often every day their post has something to do with how perfect everything is and how if you give a little, God will bless you, all these the prosperity gospel and all that kind of stuff. But, just like everything else, I feel like subconsciously in some way that does affect our psychology and our faith in a way, because, I was thinking what a draw in line when we talk about adoration. I mean, you come, sit quietly in thought and in prayer before the Blessed Sacrament is so opposed to what everything else on social media would be, that I think for our young people, in a way, it has changed their thoughts about some of that stuff. And I think they are subconsciously chasing some of that entertainment and some of those things because it looks enticing or something. I don't know.
The cool thing, though, is that because they're so conditioned to this consuming, that when a lot of times, not always, I mean, they're maybe their first experience of adoration is just like complete. Is he going to do something? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Where's the lights?
But at the same time, as soon as that, like, I think it's transforming like college students who are just coming to this encounter at this moment of their life and experiencing adoration and the silence that is there, and they having to kind of cope with sitting without. And that's a dangerous thing, is that social media sometimes can even distract us from that. But
I agree 100%. I don't think it plays well on social media, which I think should tell us that there's some inherent problems with that. And that social media really doesn't want anything to do with that and rejects all that stuff very quickly, whether it's just a short pass, like, okay, nothing, or it's an outright, opposition and get that off of here. Nobody wants that kind of stuff. And I think that you see social media reject Catholicism and those sort of things very quickly because it doesn't want it part of the discussion. With vile hate and angst.
wow,
both of those are associated with that. And our young people know that too. Like I tell them all the time, do you feel that pressure? Well, what would happen if you went up and put a post that said abortion is killing babies, and said how fast would everything light up? And they all know, they've got that constant fear of like, oh man, we get slaughtered out there. And again, by a whole lot of people that you have no idea who they are, you have no idea what they do, you have no idea if they're even real. But somehow we start to look at that and say, oh man, I should be quiet because all these people just said I'm wrong, and I don't see too many people saying I'm right.
And it's something you mentioned earlier, going back to that, is that a lot of times that those voices that you're hearing, a lot of times they actually are a super minority. It's just that they're extremely loud. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so,
squeaky chair.
The squeaky chair, which we need.
Obviously needs some
leather oil or something. But yeah, so you might have 10% of the population that's against you, or even if it's 50%. I mean, you still got 50% on your side, but you don't notice that. You don't hear that. You just hear the side that's being loud and obnoxious, and they're the ones that are being heard. And so, like you said earlier, you feel like they're the whole world when they're not.
I'm going to get myself in trouble here.
Oh, here we go.
But I really, there are very few people that I have a lot of respect or admiration for that are.
I should just cut that. There are very few people that have a lot of respect and admiration for.
Show over.
That are highly active on social media. Most of the people that I admire and look up to are not highly active. And I think that, like you talked about, the majority, and especially the majority of the good people that we should value what they think and how they feel, are not active. They're not engaging in arguments. They're not going after people. They're not doing those things. Sometimes I don't think they're even paying attention to that stuff. They're focused on other things. So I do believe it is, in a lot of ways, if we were to meet and know these people, we would say, oh, it's okay if they think that way. We know who they are, kind of thing. But because we don't know who they are, we assume them to be, someone that we should give credence to their opinion or value or something. And that's the difficulty with social media, is trying to shuffle through. Is it okay that this guy is unhappy with me or not? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's one of those things that we should look at and say, go through the list of mentors and people in your life. Are they active in social media? Are they engaging in social media or not? For mine, they're not. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me what you guys' experience is, but
I don't know. I think it could go both ways. I would think that, yeah, somebody who's so wrapped up in social media that that's what's consuming their life, then I would agree with you. But I do want to go back to a little bit of, I mean, some of the good things that can be done through it.
Yeah, I think it's like drinking pop. I mean, I personally can't handle it because I'm a popaholic, and if I drink 1 can of pop, I might as well drink a 2-liter in a day.
Yeah.
But I do believe there are people out there that are using social media in a very good way, and it's healthy for them.
Regulate it healthy.
They can regulate it, yeah, and get a lot of enjoyment and value out of it. I would actually say my wife does a much better job than I do of shuffling through the stuff that she consumes.
Of everything.
Well, of everything.
Yeah. There we go.
But so I do think there are people out there that you look at, we talked about some of those Father Mike Schmitz and some different people that are using it as a great evangelization tool, and I think they are doing really, really good things with it. For myself personally, I'm concerned whether I can do much with it because of how, I mean, I could definitely tell. I quit and went one time, and you guys probably had a similar experience with this. I don't know. And it was amazing how much less noise was in my head and how much clearer I thought on things. But I used to listen to different radio shows too and get angry. And it was amazing when I turned those voices off, how much it changed my perception of life.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with all the 24-hour news cycle things, what you just mentioned, yeah, I mean, you sit and listen to those long enough, pretty soon, regardless of what side you're on, you become an angry person.
I mean, I can definitely tell, like, in the morning, I got a habit of going, like, just to 5 different news sites just to kind of get a rounded view of what it is. And it doesn't matter. I'm mad by the end of the 5, and I think the world's coming to an end, and I think everything's bad. But I think we have to recognize that and say, if those things can affect our view of the world in such a short amount of time, is this concerning?
Yeah. And the challenge, is like you were talking about, the regulation of it. And I think that's where most of us just don't do well in terms of any kind of regulation. It's either a fire hose or it's like a dribble.
2-liter a day.
And so that's why I think there's some really blessed things out there that can assist us in that. Like I've just recently started using like the what do they call it? Even just
Time tracker.
Well, that comes up, but the regulating the app access. So like after like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, like all of my apps will shut off. And so if I want to use them, if I have to use them, you can click on them and ignore it. But at the same time, it's kind of a nice reminder that, okay, it's after 9 o'clock. There's no reason I really need to be doing any of this. But just things like that of having sort of mechanisms in our life to actually regulate, whether it's putting the phone across the room when we wake up in the morning, or whether it's something like that, regulating our apps, or, like friends of mine will talk about around the dinner table, they'll have a basket and everybody puts their phone in the basket for dinner. And just the reality.
Weird menu.
And everybody has chicken in the phone. And so all of these techniques, I thought about that. I think there was a post of that on a Christmas gathering, like a family Christmas, at the door you put your phone in the basket or something. I think there's something really cool about that and blessed about that. And if we were able to actually regulate ourselves, like if that sounds crazy to you, some of those things, then there's probably a chance. Yeah, there's probably a chance that you.
So then that goes back to, I know Cody's trying to be the nice guy over here, but then that goes back to my thing, like, hey, if it's this dangerous that we're concerned about putting apps on to track it, and we're constantly vigilant about it not consuming our life, how much do we want to mess with it?
Yeah.
That's part of fire. It is a little bit, or a drug or any sort of other thing that we might say, hey, this could consume my life and take over. Yeah. How much do we want to mess with?
I was thinking about that. It's like an alcoholic walking around with a bottle of whiskey in their pocket, and and trying to expect that they're not gonna have a drink. When you think about it in the realm of like a kid that's addicted to, whether it's the emotional attachment of social media or whether it's the using it for for lustful purposes and that kind of thing, which is obviously a struggle for many as well. So, yeah, so that's a challenge that if you have to come to terms with the fact that if I cannot control this and I am not willing to put these restrictions on it, then
You might have.
that it doesn't have control over me. And do I need to?
There's a quote that says, I can't remember what it was, but if you can't control it, it controls you. It's a better quote, but it's a good recognition of just like, hey man, I'm maybe a slave to this whole thing. And I think if a lot of people sat down and looked at it and said, I couldn't walk away from it for Lent, or I couldn't walk away from it for a week, or even put it in the basket for a meal, then you might have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be something you want to look at a little bit. But, there was some real research about the dopamine release in your brain and how it becomes addicting to see that lit up. And the other research that's kind of scary for me is that looking at a screen right before you go to sleep and how it's affecting sleep patterns and causing that constant fatigue and tiredness that not only our young people are experiencing in school, but also our adults are floating through life exhausted because of that screen time and sleep and things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so.
You want to close in prayer? Or do you want to close in a summary statement of we are still okay with? You want to make it nice?
Yeah, you want to end with something friendly and positive?
Well, I just think I would end with, I think you should challenge yourself to spend a little time today reflecting on, is social media a benefit to your life, your psychology, your emotional state?
I think about the fact that when I'm with someone and they're constantly looking at their phone, what that does to me in terms of my encounter with them and certain things that might go through my mind in that realm. And then at the same time, I think of the fact, exactly, totally. And so it's sort of that
How dare you
self-assessment.
be looking at your phone while I'm looking at my phone?
You're like, and that's the reality is we never know what the other person's looking at. That's why half the time when I look at my phone in somebody else's presence, I feel like I have to announce what I'm doing. Like, I wanted to look that, I wanted to look that up so that they don't think I'm just like surfing social media or something while they're talking to me. Like it's any better that I'm actually looking at the address or something stupid. But anyway, so that is that self-assessment and awareness of, okay, I don't like it when people are doing this in my presence, yet do I assess myself in the same way? It's kind of like I've got, I look at the splinter in my brother's eye when I've got a log in my own, and so it's sort of a plank. Yeah, there you go. And
Wooden beam.
it's different words and different translations. So
Massive redwood tree in mind. I'm saying in mind, okay?
no,
You see it.
I agree.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that's what we're getting to is obviously everybody knows that there's a lot of positive things that come as a result, but what negative things and aspects and impacts is it having on our life, and what types of regulations do we need to consider for ourselves and for our families? And
That's a great summation.
oh, thanks. I'm gonna post that on.
He's gonna post that. See if he gets some likes.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us on social media, for watching us and listening to us. And let's pray.
Let's pray.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you and praise you as we pray. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.